The Classic TV channel is your happy trails to golden oldies television from the 1940s through the formative years of the 1950s and 60s. Enjoy restored TV shows Mickey Rooney Show, Groucho Marx, Trouble with Father, Terry and the Pirates, One Step Beyond, Beverly Hillbillies, Bonanza, The Lucy Show, Dick Van Dyke, Annie Oakley, Ozzie and Harriet, The Howdy Doody Show, and many, many more. Binge your night away. So return with us now to those golden days of yesteryear.
This is a building without a name. Even the address is spoken quietly. I had been cleared by at least 20 security officers before they gave the street number to me. Today was an important one for World Aircraft Corporation, the U.S. Army Air Forces, and Les Benson, a very old friend. I was the only civilian present, without a real mission for being here. Les Benson had arranged for me to see the first test of his new jet. I don't know anything about jets except that they make a lot of noise and fly fast. It struck me as strange that this jet test was taking place about 20 miles from this room. I wondered how they figured to watch it, or how they could determine its success. The other civilian had to be Jim Cartwright, Vice President in charge of engineering. He headed for me.
Mr. Lanyard? Yeah. Well, Les Benson's told me a lot about you. I'm glad to see you.
The plane's at 70,000 feet. Test about to commence.
Gentlemen, you are about to witness the second test of the plane, which we feel will revolutionize our thinking in regard to interplanetary travel. Of course, everything you see and hear is strictly top secret. This radar scope machine will track the progress of the F-109B for us.
Test commencing. 68,000, 66,000, 64,000, 60,000. 60,000, 55,000, 50,000, 45,000, 40,000, 35,000,
30,000. Request security at the scene of the crash.
There was nothing anyone could say. The test was a failure, and a pilot was dead. I thought about Les Benson, and I decided it might be wise to see him.
Well, here's to old times.
Yes, they are the only ones that matter, aren't they?
All through dinner, I had the feeling that things weren't right between Les and Martha. It wasn't what they said. They acted friendly enough. Maybe that's what it was. They were acting. Perhaps it was because of the test failure this afternoon. You any idea what went wrong today, Les?
Maybe it was because I designed it.
All these things happen. But it was strange, seeing the death of a man 20 to 30 miles away through the eyes of a machine.
What do you mean?
Mike's talking about the radar scope. Plane flies too high to see with the naked eye. That little machine tells the whole story. Success, failure, life or death.
Who was the pilot?
Well, it had to be Kevin Law. He was the only one left checked out in the F-109B. Let's not talk about it anymore, huh, Mike?
Okay.
Good night, dear.
Night, sweetie.
When are you going to come back again to Mommy and me?
You shove off, Princess.
Good night, hon.
Good night, Uncle Mike.
Well, I hate to break up a big evening, but I have to get packed. I'm leaving town tomorrow. Nice seeing you again, Martha. Les.
That makes us even.
No. I hadn't learned much about the F-109B, but I'd learned about Les and Martha. They'd broken up. Little Jib had tossed the clincher. I wanted to know what had caused their trouble, but because they had invited me into their home, didn't mean they had invited me into their lives. I tried to tell myself to mind my own business, but it didn't help. Martha.
Oh, Mike, I'm sorry to disturb you so late, but I had to wait for my sister to come over to sit with Jib. Mike, something's happened to Les. Something's happened to the both of us.
What's happened, Martha?
Well, it started about 2 or 3 months ago.
Sit down, huh?
It was just after World Aviation promoted Les. He stopped flying, and they put him in charge of a high-speed electronic control unit.
What's that?
Well, I'm not sure. I know the company thought it was very important, and the Air Corps gave it its highest priority. Les was very proud and happy. It was connected somehow with the F-109B. He used to work on it day and night. And, well, then one night he didn't come home, and he hasn't been home since, Mike.
Well, what about tonight? He was...
Well, after you telephoned me, I called Les and told him you were coming to dinner. He said he'd be there when you arrived. I even cautioned Jib not to say anything, but, well, after all, she's only a little girl, so...
Yes, but he wouldn't walk out on you and Jib. Doesn't make sense.
I know. But there is something wrong, Mike. You've got to try to help. He's going through some awful strain, and it's going to ruin him. It's even going to ruin us.
Until today, was the F-109B ever flown?
Yes, about, 3 months ago. It failed just like today. The pilot was a friend of ours, and he was killed. Well, very little was said about it at the time, because the jet is still top secret.
Can I find Les at the plant?
No. He left them, too. He's staying at the Ridgely Hotel in town.
Okay. I'll go and see him tomorrow. Stop worrying, will you? Everything will be all right. Need anything?
No, the company's still sending Les's checks. Oh, Mike, do you really think you can help?
I don't know, Martha. But I'm going to try. It figured that if I wanted to find out what was going on with Les Benson, the place to start was with his boss, Jim Cartwright.
Lanyard? You know, you being here would seem to indicate that you have some questions.
Oh, that's right. It's about Les Benson.
Well, when you learn about Les Benson, you also learn about the F-109B.
Oh, which means?
Michael Lanyard. Age, height, weight, residence, not specified. War record, reputation, interests. Seems that you could be classified as an adventurer, Mr. Lanyard.
Why did you get all this?
I needed it before I could send you an invitation to witness our last test flight. I had to know everything about you because I needed to talk to you. And what I had to say is classified as security.
I thought it was Benson who sent me the invitation.
No.
Well, now that you know all about me. What about Benson?
Well, up until about a year ago, Benson was doing most of our experimental flying. Then we began to see that his real genius lay in design, particularly in electronic design. That's when I put him on the Electronic Stability Control Unit.
What is it exactly?
Well, the speed of planes has passed the ability of man to control them. As we go faster, we need to keep an even pace with automatic control.
Did Benson perfect such a control?
Yes, we thought so. Then about 3 months ago, we had our first high-altitude stability test. Plane dropped like a rock. George Willis, one of Benson's closest friends, was the pilot.
Yeah, I know. And Benson feels he's responsible, huh?
Well, he quit about 3 months after the accident, taking with him a lot of years of future aviation development.
But you have other engineers.
But of course we have. As a matter of fact, we did try to perfect the unit without him. You saw the result.
Yeah. It's none of my business, but just what are you trying to prove?
Mr. Lanyard, the sky is the limit once the barrier is broken. You name it. Mars, Jupiter, the moon. We'll have the battle won.
You've broken the sound barrier. What's the other?
Now, the thermal barrier. That represents the amount of friction that is built up between the atmosphere and material going at high speeds. Built up to such a point that the plane and the pilot would be burnt to a crisp if it weren't for refrigeration. No, we can't try again until we have the control.
You mentioned the death of Benson's friend, George Willis. You think that was the real reason he walked out?
Yes, it could be. But then again, maybe he's just using it as an excuse. That plane, Mr. Lanyard, has a value to many.
That's impossible. I've known Benson a long time.
That's why we sent for you. We need you to find out everything we can about Benson. I've tried, without success. We need him very badly. And I'm just an engineer. I'm not interested in conjectures. Just facts. I hope you'll decide to find them out for us. It'll help both of us.
Well, I'll do what I can.
Understand how a person feels when one day you realize you've spent your whole life devoted to one thing. Killing people.
You're off your rocker.
Did you know George Willis?
No.
A great guy, a good friend of mine. I killed him. Since then, I've killed another man, Kevin Law. You know, it's a funny thing. Someone would charge me with murder. If they did, I'd be a dead duck, because my murder was premeditated.
For a smart guy, you certainly come up with the wrong answers. Or maybe it's a cover-up for something else, huh? World Aviation gave you a big chance. They thought you were man enough to see a job through. But no, things got rough, and when they did, you couldn't take it. You looked for an ivory tower.
You're just like all the rest. Okay, Mike. You see this? That glass was traveling about 50 miles an hour when it left my hand. Look, at all those broken pieces. Now you tell me what happens to a man in the plane I designed when it hits the ground doing better than 2,000 miles an hour. What's your suggestion? I should go back to work? Build better planes, better to kill people with?
Listen to me. There are all kinds of jobs. You've got a job to do, and maybe it's tougher than most. Sure, you've failed twice, but yours is a job of experiment. Failure can occasionally mean death, but don't you realize that men like Willis and Law knew this? As I understand it, the success of this plane might mean all the difference to this country if trouble starts again.
I don't want to talk about it anymore, Mike. I don't want to talk about them anymore.
You're a liar. You keep talking about two dead pilots. Why don't you go back and do something about it? Find out what's wrong with that plane. When it's ready for another test, fly it yourself. Think it over, Les. Think about it carefully, huh? It hadn't been easy to suggest that Les fly the jet. And then, as if coming out of a bad dream, Benson was back where he belonged. There were new designs, checks and counter-checks. The heat test, wind tunnel test, changes, rearrangements. I was glad Cartwright had asked me to stay. Benson had been working so hard he didn't have time to go home, but Martha didn't seem to mind. I listened to Benson and Cartwright going over the last check before tomorrow's flight.
We're all set. Adding titanium metal to this area in here should give us the necessary heat barrier for that whole wing section.
Oh, what about the air conditioning?
Well, that's checked out for about Mach 2.2. I think we ought to try for more than that.
What is Mach?
It's a term of measurement, representing the speed of sound at any given altitude. For example, at sea level, the speed of sound is approximately 745 miles an hour. From 35,000 feet up on into the ionosphere, the speed of sound is about 670 miles an hour.
That's where we went wrong before. I'm going to stay around tonight and check it out piece by piece. When that's in shape, all our problems will be behind us.
Okay. Well, you better start checking the pilot.
Who is he?
Send in Hellman.
Yes, sir.
Lanyard, this is Chick Hellman, one of our best test pilots.
Hi. One of their best. It's always the same. Young lamb, meet the butcher. No one can fly that plane until I've checked out the stability control. And I'm not checking it out.
All right, Hellman. Be reasonable. The Air Force is flying a delegation down here.
I'm not killing any more pilots. You were right, Mike. You were the only one who said the right thing. Next time, fly it yourself. I knew when you said it that you were right. Well, I came back to finish the job that I'd started. But that means all the way. That plane doesn't leave the ground unless I fly it.
Well, you haven't flown the plane in nearly a year. You're not checked out in anything as hot as the F-109B.
Better let him fly that plane, Cartwright. It's the only way you might get through the thermal barrier.
Get out of here, both of you. I'm Benson. Unless you're here to the contrary, be on the flight ramp tomorrow morning at 7:30 in flight gear.
CL119 requesting open circuit for duration of test.
The request granted. State your altitude.
Altitude 25,000. Speed 0.8 Mach. Altitude 35,000 feet. Speed 0.95 Mach. Coming into the sonic barrier. Through the sonic barrier. Altitude 45,000 feet. Speed Mach 1.4. Altitude 70,000 feet. Speed Mach 1.7.
How high is he going?
He's there now, 70,000 feet. And at a speed of nearly 1,200 miles an hour.
I'm leveling off now. Coming downhill. Setting electronic stability control unit into operation. Pull out. Adjusted for a maximum speed of Mach 2.2. Going over. 60,000 Mach 1.8. 53,000 Mach 1.85. 50,000 Mach 1.95. Air conditioner function normal. Structure holding. 40,000 feet, Mach 2, slight yawing oscillation.
Please, God, take care of him.
That's enough, Les. Bring her out.
Mach 2.2, 35,000. In the thermal barrier, air conditioner at maximum, leading edges holding. Electronic stability control commencing pull out. Not pulling out fast enough.
The same thing happened before. The pull-out's too slow.
Right, the plane's going so fast it's impossible to pull it out. Flies itself into the ground.
Speed Mach 2.7.
It's going nearly 2,000 miles an hour.
Mach 2.8, temperature 140.
Gotta release the manual.
Benson, the ship is going too fast to handle manual.
No choice. It's going in a manual.
Benson! Les! It's passed out.
Flew to London from Paris to see Aileen Boucher dance. Aileen and Madame Chapelle, her ballet teacher, were very dear friends of mine. I hadn't seen either of them for over a year.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. The management with disappointment wishes me to announce that Mademoiselle Aileen Boucher, our prima ballerina, will not perform this evening due to illness.
Philip Duval's announcement was disappointing to me. I wasn't interested in watching Aileen's understudy. I wondered what was wrong with Aileen, and whether it was serious. And I decided not to wonder. I decided to go to her house and find out.
Hello, dear.
Welcome, Michael. Neither Aileen nor I knew you were in town.
I'm leaving tomorrow. How is Aileen?
Fine, fine. Perfectly well.
I must say you look perfectly well.
May I get you a drink?
No, thanks.
What brings you to London, Michael?
Aileen, I had a free day. I thought it would be good to see Aileen dance again.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry, Mike. I just felt rotten. It has been a long tour. I guess I am tired.
You should rest. How many cities left?
2 weeks for Zurich, 1 for Berlin. Then a 3 months holiday.
Not quite a holiday. She still treats me as a beginner. 6 hours each day for rehearsal, only 2 when I am performing.
My little one. You may be a prima ballerina, but to me, I see all the mistakes, and I wince. When the day arrives and I see no more flaws, then my work will have been done.
Perfection can be dull. Sometimes imperfection in art can be much more exciting.
Michael, as a man, I love you. As a ballet master, I hate you.
You see, Mike, no one can win. It is true. She is a great taskmaster. But after all, many years ago, she taught me my very first steps. Times have not changed. She still teaches me. In a way, we would be lost without each other.
One moment you taunt me, the next you compliment me. I believe you and Michael to talk. You two will stop talking ballet, and I will be bored. You move well, Michael. Once I could have made a dancer of you.
I'm glad you didn't get the chance.
Will I see you before you leave town?
Probably not.
Aline is dancing tomorrow night. Why not stay over? It's just one more day.
All right, I'll try.
Good.
Good night.
Will you really try, Mike?
Aileen didn't seem ill to me, but I knew something was bothering her. She appeared nervous and upset. I liked her too much to play games, so I decided to ask. I said, Aileen, what's the matter? What's wrong?
Wrong? Absolutely nothing, Mike. What could there be?
I'd say a lot. I'd say you just lied to me.
Please, stay for a while. Just a little while.
Tell me why.
Because I am afraid. At first, I ignored it. And then, little by little, I began to become afraid. In the past 3 months, I've missed almost as many performances as I have danced.
Like tonight?
Yes, like tonight and like many nights. I believe the letters and I am afraid.
What letters?
They're all in the desk. They all say the same thing. They threaten death.
Oh. Unless what?
Unless I give up dancing and retire.
It's probably some jealous ballerina.
If I could only be sure. Mike, could you stay for a while?
Don't worry. We'll work something out. I'll get a good night's sleep. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
I feel better just knowing you're near. Can you meet me tomorrow at the theater about 11:30 and watch rehearsal?
Sure.
Where are you staying?
At the Dorchester. Good night. Don't worry, huh?
I won't.
When I got back to my hotel, I called Duval. I asked him if he thought Aileen was really ill. He said he didn't. Neither did the doctors. Then he said something that surprised me. Aileen that morning had told him that Berlin would be her last performance. She was going to retire. He said he was sorry because Aileen was the finest ballerina since Pavlova. I told him not to mention our conversation to anyone. Madame Chappelle.
Invite me in, Michael. After all, a woman of my age isn't ever watched by a house detective.
And the house detective must be crazy. Come in. Sit down, please. Does Aileen know you're here?
No. I told her I had left something in the theater that I needed. Michael, we have known each other a long time. I have an impatience with words, so I'll come to the point.
Go ahead.
What do you think is wrong with Aileen?
I'm no doctor, but I think she's tired.
I think it's more than that. Did she tell you about the letters?
Yeah.
Did she show them to you?
No. Why do you ask?
Because I don't think there are any letters. I think it's all a figment of imagination.
You realize what you're saying?
I know what I'm saying. I recognized it in Milano.
Hello. Hello.
Michael, you must come over right away. It's Darren.
What's happened?
Not over the phone. I need you.
I'll be right there.
Michael, she's dead. Aline has committed suicide.
What? When did it happen?
Half an hour ago. I was awakened by a shot. I ran into her bedroom. She was dead. Michael! It can't be true! It must be true! Please tell me! Tell me this is true.
It was true. Aileen was dead. And I thought of the threats that had driven her to suicide. I felt sick and angry inside. And I promised myself one thing. Whoever had caused her death was going to pay. And pay big. We better call the police.
I already have.
Inspector Holman.
Mike Lanyard, Inspector.
Oh, yes.
This is Madame Chappelle.
We received a telephone call.
Yes, I know. Upstairs. As I took the inspector upstairs, I told him of the threats Aileen had received.
Anything strike you as possibly unusual in this room, Mr. Lanyard?
You mean the distance of the gun from the hand and the bed?
Yes, of course, the gun could have bounced when it hit the floor.
Yeah, could have.
The yard doesn't like suicide, Mr. Lanyard.
I'm not sure it was suicide, Inspector. No actual murder.
You mean the threats?
Yes. Sometimes fear can drive a person so crazy that death appears a relief.
Yes, I know what you mean. A threat is sometimes the most terrible crime of all. Yes, this is part of what you mean.
Exactly.
May I ask, who is Madame Chappelle?
Practically Aileen Boucher's family. She started teaching her ballet more than 15 years ago. She's devoted her life to Aileen ever since.
Oh, then she wouldn't have a reason.
No, she wouldn't have a reason.
Well, you spoke about threats. What kind of threats? Were they made by telephone?
No. At least I wasn't told so. Aileen mentioned letters.
Letters?
Mm-hmm. She said they were all in the desk.
They might help, Mr. Lanyard. There are no letters.
You remember, Michael? I told you.
Told him what, Madame Chappelle?
Aileen is dead now. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it. Aileen has been ill. She has been imagining things. There were never any letters.
Why are you so positive?
She was my child, my life. There has never been room for a secret. I opened all our mail every morning since she was a little girl. Had I seen a letter, I would have taken it to the police.
I understand, Madame. I have a few questions I would like you to answer, providing you feel up to it. Otherwise, it can wait until morning.
It's better to talk, even to a stranger, than to sit still and think.
Very well. To whom did the gun belong?
Aileen. She bought it in Milan.
Why in Milan?
That's when she began talking of threats. She said the gun gave her security.
Well, now, this may be rather a difficult question, Madame, but who might profit by Mademoiselle Boucher's death.
Prophet! You make her sound like a bank bull. Aline was prudent. Her fortune is considerable. I know it has been willed to her father. But the loss is greater than the profit. The world no longer will see a girl who could dance like an angel and who the gods had gifted with an almost incomparable talent. I, Inspector, understand and inherit that loss.
Don't you think that's enough for now, Inspector?
You're right, Mr. Lanyard. There are a few details to take care of. Meanwhile, I suggest that Madame Chapelle be given a sedative.
Yeah.
It's very possible I'll need you tomorrow, Mr. Lanyard. If so, where may you be reached?
At the Dorchester. Next day I went to the theater to see Philippe Duval.
Come in. Lanyard. This is too horrible.
Yeah.
I knew she was ill, but never this ill.
Any idea why she might have been ill?
No. It is as I told you last evening. Even the doctor seemed perplexed.
What about you? Did you complain about the money you had to pay her? Did you say she might be slipping? That perhaps it was time to give another ballerina a chance at the jackpot?
Mike, you are mad. I loved Aline. When I first hired her, I had a small troupe, but she made me famous. She made me wealthy. The money I paid her was nothing. 100 times I offered her partnership. But no, Aline wasn't just a ballerina. She was a form, a symphony.
Who has been her understudy?
Nicky Armand.
Well, that's a start. Is she here?
She's rehearsing.
Send for her.
Send Nicky Armand to my office right away. Mike, I think you are wrong.
Thinking's not good enough. I want to know.
Only yesterday, Aline and I went over her routines for our next engagement. Nothing forlorn. Everything filled with beauty and hope. And then to do this terrible thing. Come in.
You wanted me, Mr. Duval?
Nicky, this is Michael Lanyard. He wants to talk to you.
About what, Mr. Lanyard?
Have you been practicing? Or have you been rehearsing Aileen's routines?
Why is that important?
I want to know. Would you rather tell the police?
I've been rehearsing Aileen's dances.
You didn't waste much time, did you?
Why should I? For 2 years I've understudied her. For 2 years I've watched her every move. I prayed for her to get sick so I could take over. Until a few months ago I had nothing. Then occasionally she'd miss a show and I would get a chance. But never for long enough. She'd return the next morning and those 3 glorious hours of the night before were supposed to be enough.
So in a way, her death is a blessing. Huh?
Death is never a blessing. But her death is my opportunity.
You didn't like Aileen Boucher?
At first, I loved her. Then I learned to hate her. I hated her great talent. I hated her making difficult dances look easy. Yes, Mr. Lanyard, I hated Aileen. When I read in the newspapers this morning about her, I felt no sorrow.
Nicky, I'm shocked.
Don't be shocked. I've hated you too. You had eyes for no one but Aileen. Every time you criticized, you praised Aileen. Do you know what it is to burn with ambition?
And you didn't threaten her? You didn't write her a letter?
I hated Aileen, but I never threatened her. All I ever wanted was a chance. I know in time I will dance well. I know I will never be as great as Elaine.
Perhaps no one will ever be as great.
You better go, Nicky.
Take a day off and no hate. Pray for her. She told you the truth.
I know. I don't know why Aileen is dead.
Why she committed suicide?
No. Why she was murdered. I headed for Aileen's house by taxi. I had an idea, but I wanted to be wrong. Madame Chappelle was still asleep from the sedative she'd been given. I had a hunch that somewhere in this house was the evidence I needed to prove Aileen's death wasn't suicide. I started upstairs to find proof of murder. I had found Madame Chappelle's diary, and I'd read it twice. It told a brutal story and explained many things. I wanted how people are able to kill those they love. Fortunately for me, the person who could give me that answer was still alive.
Have I been asleep long, Michael?
For many hours. How do you feel?
Lonely.
I learned something today.
What?
Aileen didn't commit suicide. Why did you kill her?
Michael, I loved her. She was my life.
That's part of the reason, but not all of it. Aileen was a reflection of your life. Why did you kill her?
How did you find out?
The diary. You wrote, "Tonight in Milano, Aileen was without a peer. She must die." Then you lied to me about the rest of the dances she wanted to select for the tour. You now told me they were not of death or torture.
Aileen was my pupil. I recognized her talent when first we met. I taught her. She depended on me. I took her from modesty and gave her riches. I watched her learn, become famous. I basked in her glory. But we always both knew that I, in my day, was the greater dancer. Each day, each week, each year she improved. I was my own challenge through her. I had her chasing my ghost, but always I was in front of her. Then, that night in Milano, she broke my heart, Michael. Isn't it funny? That night she killed me. She had caught my ghost. And for the first time, I was chasing her. I walked the streets afterwards. I kept telling myself it wasn't true. Aileen had committed a crime and had to be punished. She had killed me, so I had to kill her. I started to plan for that day.
The letters.
Yes, the letters. I knew she was sensitive. In time, they would upset her. It preyed on her mind. Her dancing suffered, and I was happy. And then you appeared. But I was afraid you might help her. When I left you in your hotel room, I chuckled at how easy you were to convince. Then my plan was ready. My pupil, who had killed and robbed me of my talent, was ready to die. While she slept, I shot her and placed a gun alongside her bed. The rest you know. At least, almost know.
What don't I know?
The moment the gun went off, I saw two ghosts, mine and Aline's. And you know, Michael, I was right. My ghost was happy. I was dancing better. And once again, I was in front of Aline.
I'm sorry for you. Carefully, Scotland Yard.
I was right, Aline. My ghost is in front